regarding the 76th place in Center City. That's going to be a fascinating story to watch. I don't think they should come to New Jersey. For me, it would be nice. I live in South Jersey, and the commute's better for me. But as somebody who would want to just go to the stadium complex and be able to just have every team in the same spot, that's something that I can't get rid of. You don't want to have the Sixers leave the stadium complex with where they're at now. Maybe just find a site there and build it there. Just find a way to figure this out, because you want all the teams in the same spot. It's very unique to the city of Philadelphia to have all the teams in one spot.
Absolutely. It's just a part, like I said, of the culture. People enjoy coming to the stadium. They enjoy walking over to Xfinity Live. And if that's no longer an option, it just doesn't really feel authentic like Philadelphia. Philly has that grit. They have those vibes around the city. And I know they want to kind of move it into the city. I don't even think that will work due to, the transportation and parking. And, you start to turn off a little bit of the crowd, but just moving it to New Jersey, it doesn't feel feasible. And I just think this is kind of out of left field and more of a leverage play, like you said, just to try to make some moves here.
Yeah, you don't want to be fraudulent like the two New York teams who play up north with the Jets and the Giants. You don't want to turn into that playing in New Jersey. No. Might as well call them the New Jersey Sixers at that point. All right, enough of the stadium talk. I want to get into the Sixers a little bit. RB, I mean, they go out. Daryl Morey, he was on the clock and he delivered. I mean, with what was out there on the free agent market, he got the best player available. He added Caleb Martin, Eric Gordon. This team has a little bit of depth now. They have some toughness, I feel like, added to this roster. Just your overall grade, if you had to give one to Daryl Morey for this offseason, what would it be?
I think it has to be an A. He delivered. He went out and first off got the superstar, which the Sixers typically do not do. Like, when's the last time a star decided I'm going to Philadelphia? And on top of that, he addressed almost every single roster concern. Now, there are still some issues. This is nowhere near a perfect team, but they have now entered that contention window for a couple more seasons at least. Like, you look at Paul George, if he can come in and be that third option with Tyrese Maxey, with Joel Embiid, there's no reason that this team can't be a deep playoff squad. I mean, essentially, you're asking Paul George to say, give you 20 a night? Now, I think people underestimate the Maxey leap as well. If Maxey takes another step and Joel Embiid's in MVP form, and at the same time, Paul George is relieving some of that pressure, this can be the best big three in the NBA. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and you mentioned Paul George maybe only averaging 20 points. He's the third option now. He doesn't have to be the number one guy. Embiid doesn't really have to be the guy who's taken over every single night, because now you have Maxey, you have George. What do you make of Paul George being kind of that third option, not have to be the number one guy, and be kind of, might have, he could take a step back if he wants to at this point. So what do you make of that kind of dynamic with those three?
I think it's the perfect opportunity at this point in his career. And I know a lot of people get frustrated and say that, PG has regressed and he's gotten older and he hasn't shown up in the playoffs. The fact of the matter is there was no better option at this point. You're bringing in a guy who, like you said, can now be maximized as that third player, that third star. He doesn't have to do as much. And if he can take some of the pressure some nights early in the season off Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, it just creates a much better dynamic. It's essentially asking him to do what you wanted out of Tobias Harris, and you just never really got that. So I think PG is the perfect complementary piece. With all respect due to Kelly Oubre, I'm very glad he's back. He is a role player. Paul George is a star. You now have that third player, that wing, that can create on his own. And it's just been a very long time since we've been able to say that for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, and another name that the 76ers brought in, Caleb Martin. I mean, I was on the air that day when they signed him. They got him for pretty cheap compared to what the Heat could have gave Caleb Martin to bring him back. What is he going to bring to this roster? I know, like, Woj, when he tweeted it out, he was he reported that, like, all the stats against Boston. Like, he is very good against the Boston Celtics. What is Caleb Martin going to bring to this roster that the 76ers have not had in the past?
He's going to bring that spot up shooting. He's a guy who can create a little bit as well, and he's just going to get in there and be scrappy. I think the Sixers obviously have tried to develop that identity over the last couple years, but some of the dogs never really showed up. Caleb Martin's a guy who you go out there in a big game and can provide you a big spark, whether it's in the starting five, off the bench. He's coming in and he's attacking, and I really like his game. As you said, he's a Celtics killer, but on top of that, he just can provide a little more consistency, especially off the bench, if that's where he is used. We're not really sure at this point, but the Sixers have just needed one of those guys off the bench. They haven't had it consistently, and I think Caleb Martin is a guy who just comes in and gives you a quick 10 off the bench, an easy punch, and a little bit of a spark to kind of get that second unit going.
Yeah, I think that's a big signing for the 76ers to bring him in, steal him away from the Heat. He's a Boston killer. That's what the 76ers need. They need a little bit of toughness against Boston for sure. I want to ask you, like, there's a couple of roster spots left on this team. Not a ton of cap space left as well. Is there any names in free agency right now that you're eyeing that the 76ers should probably target? And is there anybody out in maybe the trade market that Daryl Morey should go after?
Yeah, I think at this point in regards to trade, they'll probably wait until the season gets underway, try to evaluate the playing field, see who becomes available. We know there will be a couple of those guys early in the season, but as of right now, I still think it's an important issue that the Sixers have no starting power forward. As much as we like to rag on Toby, he gave us 7+ rebounds a game. And right now, the best rebounder outside of Joel Embiid on this team might be Kelly Oubre or Caleb Martin. The Sixers need to go out and get a starting power forward. Even if it's a placeholder, I'm looking at guys like Marcus Morris, who have that familiarity in Philly. He's a local. He loves the energy here.
He's got the key to the city, RB.
He's got a key to the city right before he got traded. Marcus Morris, I would even take a look at Precious Achiuwa, who averaged 7+ rebounds a game last year, has a bit of familiarity with Nick Nurse. You need a placeholder. You need a guy to come in. It's not going to be perfect right away, but just somebody that can help hold down the fort when it comes to the glass next to Joel Embiid, because that's been one of the Sixers' biggest issues, especially in the playoffs. They just get out-rebounded and out-hustled, and they've never had that type of guy.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need it. We saw it in the Knicks series. The Knicks were out hustling them over and over and over again. If you had to predict, looking way ahead, heading into next season, where do you think the 76ers will end up? Let's say they stay relatively healthy for most of the season. Where do they end up in the Eastern Conference?
I think they should be a top 3 seed, no doubt in my mind, given the star power, given the offensive prowess. And again, if they can add a few pieces, maybe near the deadline, there's no reason this team can't go into the war. When Daryl Morey approached this past season, he knew that it was going to be a bridge year. Sure, we had heightened expectations. We got excited. But at the end of the day, this was a bridge year to set up this free agency. The Sixers have now cashed in. They picked up Andre Drummond, who's a very reliable backup as well. They bring back Oubre, Martin, Paul George. They have a squad. They are trying to go to the top and compete with Boston, New York, Miami, etc. There's no reason that if they stay relatively healthy, they should not be a squad to compete with next year in the Eastern Conference.
It's going to be fascinating to see the 76ers next year. They add Paul George. They add a bunch of other guys. Bring back Kelly Oubre, Eric Gordon, all these names. It's going to be exciting. I mean, they haven't been past the second round since Allen Iverson, RB, so going to be a lot of fun. I want to thank you for joining today, but before you go, let everyone know where they can find all your content.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you having me on. You can find me on YouTube and all podcasting platforms at Philly Take with RB. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well at RB Philly Take. We cover the Sixers every single day.
All right, RB, thanks so much for joining me, man. Have a good one.
Thanks, man. You too.